The hard part is he's set a standard now. Like a standard Brock game is 30 points and, 80% completion and a couple touchdowns and no picks. And like he has a game like last week, you're like, it's okay. It's okay. But I think that's super cool that's where we are with him.
Steve Young with Copes and Tommy earlier tonight on The Sports Leader. Welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you on a Wednesday night. And now we get out to the islands for a man who's sitting poolside as people swim by. It doesn't look blue skies. It looks kind of overcast. It's maybe an overcast day in Hawaii. But JD, boots on the ground, joins us poolside in Hawaii to talk Niner ball. JD, how are you?
What's going on, Larry? It's great to be with you. Yeah, poolside, a little overcast. It rained overnight here, but for the most part, it's been pretty sunny and a little breezy and tropical out here in Hawaii and close to the BYU Hawaii campus where the Warriors are doing their thing. We got the best Dubs coverage in the Bay, Larry, but we also have the best Niners coverage in the Bay. And you're a big part of that, and I know I kind of go back and forth, big part of the Dubs coverage, and not a bad way if I'm going to miss a couple of practices down in Santa Clara to spend the week covering the Dubs, and then we're going to reconvene Sunday. I'm going to see you at Levi's Sunday morning, just like always, and looking forward to it, my man. Big game for the Niners to continue to get back on track.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours, dude, and all the work that you do and have been for years. We go way, way, way back to, Sacramento back in the 90s. Okay, J.P. Mason. Let's talk about Mason because I asked Kyle Shanahan today, I said, who's your running back two? And he's like, well, you mean behind Mason?
Debo?
I'm like, yeah, behind Mason. And I kind of look at CMC as like, you know what, maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. If I were the Niners, I would just be like, I'm not banking on him coming back. And if he comes back, hey, surprise, surprise, look who's here. That's the way I would handle it if I were them. But I think the bigger question is, and I asked Kyle this question a year ago about McCaffrey. I said, is his workload sustainable? And he's like, well, we like to hand it to him. We like to throw it to him. And he's our guy. Well, they ran him into the ground. And then he wasn't the same guy in the Super Bowl. He fumbled in the Super Bowl. Was it cause and effect? I think it was, but whatever. Now here we are a year later. There is no CMC for the moment. And Mason is on pace for 387 carries. It's 75 more than the Niners franchise mark set by Frank Gore in 2006. And he's running against stacked boxes 54% of the time. So I'll throw it to you, JD. Is his workload sustainable? If by chance, knock on wood, the guy had some injury, do you feel comfortable with Guerendo? I mean, we haven't even seen Patrick Taylor even get one carry yet. Are the Niners in a world of hurt if Mason gets hurt?
I think at this point they would be. I don't think they have a choice to look to dial it back on Mason right now. I think they need him. And I think going back to last year, I think, and we can debate right or wrong, but I think Kyle Shanahan believed Jordan Mason wasn't quite ready last year. And so if he wasn't quite ready last year, he had to lean on Christian McCaffrey. I think it's especially true this year. Like he feels right now, especially with this team sitting at 2-2, that it's Mason and then there's a significant drop-off. So I think to that point, they have to just continue to ride Mason because they need to continue to find ways to win football games and then hope that they get Christian McCaffrey back and Christian McCaffrey can be the guy that can help offset Jordan Mason and that they can balance each other out to where McCaffrey doesn't have what we're all hoping doesn't happen, which is the season-ending Achilles injury if he does come back, and that they can complement each other maybe in the way that they should have in hindsight a year ago, right? Like maybe they'll find that balance and that it will allow both of them to make it through this 2024 year and be able to be impactful even into what the Niners are hoping is a deep playoff run. So I think that has to be the way you look at it. I don't trust Guerendo at this point. I don't think the Niners trust Guerendo at this point. Don't trust Taylor at this point. And I think if something were to happen to to Jordan Mason right now. I think what would ultimately, I think it would go back to Deebo Samuel. I think it would go back to wide back and kind of 2021 vibes, and Deebo try to save the season, and Brock Purdy throwing the rock as he's done well here in the first almost quarter of the season now with 17 games. I think that's where they'd become more dependent.
You know, it's funny because I the more I look at the Niners depth chart, the more I think that even though Mason's the 1 now and Garendo's, let's say, the 2 and Taylor's the 3, I actually don't think that's the actual depth chart. I think if Mason went down, that it's Keyshawn Vaughn time. I think Keyshawn Vaughn, who's on the practice squad, who's way more experienced than Garendo or Patrick Taylor, unless they're going external options, I think so if Mason got hurt in a game, then it's time for Garendo, Taylor, Deebo
no
for that
choice.
day. But if he gets hurt, this week and then it's next week, I think next week it's Keyshawn Vaughn or somebody else that's not Garendo, not Taylor. That's just my guess. But what's clear to me, JD, is that the Niners offense is going to have to carry this team to the Super Bowl this year. It will not be the special teams. It will not be the defense. The offense is going to have to be the dominant force if they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Do you agree with that, or how do you feel about the other 2 units, the defense and the special teams?
Well, I'm inclined to agree, but I do think the defense and the special teams have to be at least a little bit better than they've been overall for it all to compute and for it all to work out. Like I do think this is going to have to be more of an offensive-driven team. And look, I think there were some bright spots against the Patriots, but I think a lot of it was the Patriots, right? Being able to get after Jacoby Brissett, being able to force some turnovers. I mean, Fred Warner is just a absolute menace right now to the rest of the league, and that's great. But a lot of the problems that have been problems are still problems for the 49ers defensively, and I think they're going to have to show some improvement on that end of the ball if they want to be a Super Bowl contender and or winner. So I think that's got to level up, and then they've got to stop making the mistakes on special teams. But independent of that, I'm with you on the notion that it has to be kind of an offensive-driven team as far as Brock, I think, really leading the way, and Mason, and Jawan Jennings and Ayuk and Kittle and everybody else. I think they all have to be factored into the mix.
2-2 after 4 games, JD. If I say to you, who's the team to beat in the NFC? Is it the Niners? I mean, and the reason I ask you is I'm looking at FanDuel's odds right in front of me. The Niners are plus 380. They're the favorite. Detroit's plus 550. FanDuel's got Philly at plus 650. Vikings at plus 750. And shockingly, they've got Dallas at plus 1,100 and Green Bay at plus 1,200. How you could have Dallas in front of Green Bay is shocking to me. That seems like a bad number. But what do you think? Would you make in the JD, the John Dickinson Casino, are you making the Niners the favorite to get out of the NFC?
I mean, I think only because the Eagles are not quite the Eagles haven't shown me enough at 2-2 to say they should be. The Packers, again, I thought the Packers were one of the most overrated, and Jordan Love specifically, one of the most overrated teams coming into the year. I think everybody saw that back half of the year last year in the playoff games and way overrated what the Packers potentially had cooking for this season. And I think even the Lions, who did play their most impressive game against a banged-up Seattle team on Monday night, they should have lost to the Rams the first game. They kind of gritted that game out and then didn't play well the next week, and so they're kind of, but then did have their best game against Seattle. So I would have a hard time, just because the Lions haven't done it, maybe putting them ahead of the Niners at this point. Although I think they're the next closest team that would have a shot to get to the Super Bowl. But and the Vikings are in that mode of going from bad to good, where nobody's going to believe that the Vikings are actually good, even though they are pretty good at 4-0. And we saw what they did to the Niners. Should have probably blown them out, even though the Niners had a chance to win week 2 in Minneapolis. The Vikings are that team that's just not going to get the respect until at the end of the year they're 12-5 or 13-4, and then it's like, oh yeah, I guess the Vikings are pretty damn good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, nobody believes in Sam Darnold. I shouldn't say nobody, but nobody believed in Sam Darnold at the beginning of the year, and they're slowly and maybe grudgingly accepting that Sam Darnold.
They have quality wins though. Like, look at their win.
Yeah,
I mean,
they do. All of them.
They were blown out the Packers. They were blown out the Packers. Had to hang on, and did. They were putting it to the Niners. Couple of turnovers made that a closer game than I think it truly was. And then, you look at what they did to the Texans. I mean, just dismantling them in Minneapolis. And so, the Texans, I think, are a playoff team, obviously, in the AFC, and some had them going to the Super Bowl. So I think that the Vikings, through 4 weeks, have a pretty legit 4-0 when you look at the teams that they've been able to beat and how they've been able to beat them.
How about the Niner defense? So the Niner defense is 9th in yards, 10th in points allowed. They're giving up 20.5 points a game. They're 6th in the rush D. They're 15th in pass D. They're 4th overall in sacks, 10th in picks. How do you feel about the 49er defense? I mean, Sorensen, they're 26th in third down percentage, so they're having a really hard time on third down. And Sorensen has dialed up a higher percentage of blitz each and every game, topping out this last game at 33%. Do you think that's sustainable? What do you think of the 49ers on the defensive side? Was last week's great performance about the Niners or the horrible Patriots offense?
I mean, I think you have to give credit to the Niners, but I think it was mostly the horrible Patriots offense. And I think the blitz numbers for me, that's Sorensen trying to compensate for other deficiencies. Because the Niners typically don't, I think, want to be a team that's going to blitz a lot, but I think they felt like they have to. That's always kind of matchup and quarterback-based, too. Like, there are certain quarterbacks that you do want to blitz. There are other quarterbacks that you don't. I think trying to get the ball out a little quicker for the Niners rather than letting plays develop for the opposition is probably beneficial. But, yeah, just the inability to get off the field. They have been kind of hit or miss against the run. I think teams feel like they can run on them when they really need to. They're making enough plays. If you force turnovers, that's going to offset a lot of things, and they force turnovers against the Patriots, so I do think they deserve credit from that. But all in all, I'm concerned about the defense, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm concerned about the defense because it's a lot of the same problems that really smart people prognosticated would be problems, and they are problems, right? Deep ball, interior running game, speed at linebacker, speed over the top. It can't just be, maybe not getting enough from the other pass rushers. Like, I do think, Kevin Givens was a real bright spot in the game, I thought, against the Patriots.
And 2.5 sacks for Givens.
Yeah, and he's somebody they trust. I think we were talking about it last week, or I may have been talking to somebody else about just the fact that, like, who's going to be the guy. I think it was actually on the pregame with Copes and Lund and Dennis Brown. Like, Givens is a guy that they trust. Like, they there's a reason he's always been around, right? And when he hasn't been, they've tried to get him back. So they like Givens. Givens paid dividends. I think they're feeling pretty good about that, but they just don't have the overall depth on the interior line that they've had before. And so I think they're going to have to compensate for it, and they may have to look, to do something at safety. Renardo Green, I know he played more. He's somebody that you've been calling for. He played more against the Patriots. I think that helped. I think we're going to see more of that. We're seeing more of Malik Mustafa. I think that probably continues, and then they're going to figure out if they have to go out and look to make a move outside the organization.
Last one on the way out the door. Davante Adams demanded a trade. A lot of people saying Jets, maybe Saints, and then, of course, all the speculation about, hey, what about the Niners? And I don't see that happening. It just doesn't make sense. The Niners are 12-1 odds of landing Davante or being his next team, but the Jets, Washington, KC, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Arizona, Green Bay, all have better odds. Where's Davante going to wind up? Will the Raiders trade him? Where does he go?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's the Jets, right, with the connection to Rodgers as far as where he goes. My question to you is, would he wear black shorts or red shorts? Would he wear green shorts or white shorts if he go like that's no.
He better wear the black shorts, or he's going to have to kick him off in the middle of practice.
Well, here's my thing, and I don't know, maybe you've touched on this because it's obviously been out there the last 2 days now, but like if you're the Niners, like let's just play this out, and I don't think he's coming to the Niners, but if you're somebody that thinks he would either be a good fit for the Niners or the Niners should have interest or whatever it is it the straight up like Ayuk for Adams? Like is it hey, Ayuk is still not. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but do you feel like that's the thought behind it? Like, the people that think that, do you think that's why?
Oh, I think they're just thinking
that would have
Ayuk's,
to be the trade, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely thinking Ayuk. But, I mean, Ayuk, you just paid Ayuk, I think, $40 million. You just paid him that. So, now you're going to get rid of him? That wouldn't make sense. Also, you look at Devontae's money the next 2 years, it doesn't make sense. Then you look at the fact that Devontae's 32 and Ayuk's 26 and a wide receiver prime's like 7 years, and you're trading for a guy that's 5 years older. I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense on a lot of fronts. JD, but still juicy and always fun to talk about. JD, great stuff, man. We appreciate you jumping in. Have a phenomenal couple days there in Hawaii. Do a great job covering the Warriors, and we'll see you at Levi's on Sunday.
Yeah, appreciate it, Larry. And just real quick, want to let everybody know, coming up, I'm going to be on after you on Friday night, 7 to 9. It's a special sports phone, KNBR, from Hawaii, Dubs training camp. I've got some interviews. I got a chance to sit down with Gary Payton II earlier today. We've got some more things cooking in terms of some one-on-one interviews the next 2 days. And we're going to air all those interviews and kind of do a Dubs camp / preview show after your show. So we got Niners Nightly covered, and then we got our sports phone Dubs camp special on Friday. So really looking forward to that, and we got a lot of great stuff planned.
High five.
Sounds great, man. Have a terrific time out in the islands, and everybody catch JD on Friday night. I'm sure he'll have some fantastic interviews. Can't wait to hear him. JD, have a great night, man. Appreciate you.
You got it. Thanks, Larry.